I'm going to touch just briefly on magazine image transfer because I know it's a topic that interests a lot of people and they have varying degrees of success with it. So let's just talk about some of the basics. What you're looking for in a magazine image are a couple of things. You're looking for high contrast in the image. So here's a few examples of just black and white images. They don't have to be black and white, they can be colour, but there's a difference between the contrast in the image. We're not talking a difference in colour. That is not a high contrast photo or page, and neither is that. So that is not what you're looking for in contrast. They are contrasting colours, but not in the tone. So, and again, that gets a little bit more detailed and we haven't got time to go through it in just this beginner's course. So you're looking for high contrast images, strong blacks and whites and lighter colours. So I do love using typography, not just portrait, especially in other languages. So these are just some examples of pages that I have torn out where they are high contrast. The other thing to look out for is that the pages need to not be coated. If you will probably see how glossy that is because of the light reflecting. The covers of these magazines and some of the feature pages throughout are thicker, sometimes not necessarily thicker, but coated with a varnish. And that varnish will be a barrier to the layer of ink on the page, and therefore they will not transfer. So avoid anything with a coating, anything that feels thicker and a bit glossier than the others. Having said that, these pages still are glossy, but probably only experience will tell you what is a coated page with a varnish and what is not. So you just need to keep looking for that. Examples of just black and white text, fabulous typography is great. And what you do need to be careful of is using people's images. Feel free to use them in your own practice and your own learning, but be aware that there is copyright both on people's images and using them in your posts or in artwork, but also branding. So avoid well-known brands and any branding that you see in magazines. You can perhaps tear some out and make it less recognisable, but it's surprising, how even, with this, it would be quite obvious what brand I have used as a source. So yes, typography is awesome. I've just marked a few pages. This particular one is a French Vogue, and who doesn't love all that fabulous, those numbers and obviously the French writing as well. So Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, they're both high quality. We're looking for high quality print, and they will cost a little bit more because they lay down a decent amount of ink in their printing process. And that is something, while you might sort of go to Vogue or Harper's Bazaar, there's also travel magazines that are fabulous. So you're looking for higher end magazines. I've marked this one because that in and of itself could transfer quite nicely. There are some reds and blues in there, but there's quite a bit of black and white. And you could tear sections of that out, and that could make great inserts into your collages. And again, a travel magazine. And just this area here I was attracted to because the graphic elements of those would transfer well. I've obviously torn a section out of that and used it already, but those areas would work well. So I do get a few travel magazines, even that sort of page, the typography there, just some of these are quite high contrast photographs. And this is just, I think, a freebie out of our David Jones here in Australia. Again, there are sections, beautiful typography, and just sections that could be used throughout. That's really probably copyright, that image, because it's used by David Jones and it's very iconic David Jones. But over back here is just a black and white table setting that could work as well. So that gives you an idea. This is just going to be a very brief overview because it is a big topic, and we can't cover everything in a beginner's course. So let's get our table set up and organised, and I will bring in my gel plate and just my palette to roll off on. And I will choose this one because it's a nice strong image. The detail is really good. I will use this as an example because I love the text, but also his image is quite good as well. There are many that you could choose from. So this is all a bit subjective, but I will give you a few clues as we go through. I am using my Amsterdam Oxide Black in the acrylic paint in the Amsterdam series, but there are several more, but this is probably my preferred paint when it comes to both magazine and laser image transfer. So let us give this a go. It is just takes a bit of time to get used to the amount of paint to put on. And I do suggest that you have nice clean hands for this, because then they won't, if you're sort of a bit hot and sweaty, your hands will often stick to the magazine as you're trying to lay that image down. So I'm working that paint layer quite a bit, getting rid of my braille lines, hoping not to get any of those on my plate. And laying down the image. So I'm going to catch that left-hand edge, and this is where you need to sort of have clean, dry hands to just smooth out. And the weight of magazine paper will often mean that air bubbles can catch. It's a lightweight paper which can catch air bubbles. So just give it a little rub over, very quick, and then peel back. Okay, so you can see that there was a little bubble under his eye. So it's not quite as black, the eye, which is a bit disappointing, clearly, but the other eye is perfect. So there are a few ways of going here. I like to leave the image to dry, and I'm going to do that with a hairdryer just to keep it moving. I'll get myself a palette knife. And remember, I've said before, what I've done is I have my plate on the same sized substrate, same size cardboard that I'm going to print onto. And that gives me a guide of how I'm going to centre that on the page. Okay, so not too much medium. Spreading that nice and evenly across. And I am going to change my mind again. I'm going to quickly grab some tissue. Hopefully it won't dry on me while I'm doing that. Okay, so I'm catching that bottom edge. Tissue just gives me a much greater opportunity to use it in collage. So I'm spreading that down slowly, laying that down, eliminating as many creases as I can. There's a couple of there, they're pretty normal to get some. I will pop that one also in water and give this a bit of a blast with the hairdryer and dry that off. All right, so I'm grabbing that edge. You can see all the lovely strands coming off there. Let's see if I can pull that off with it. There we go, a nice long one there. And there is a break there where the crease was. And disappointingly, there was a tiny little bubble, air bubble over his eye. Apart from that, that would be a pretty perfect print. But, you know, that's just the way it goes. As you can see, it's not quite got the definition there. If you wanted, you could come in with a fine black marker and touch that up a bit. But that just gives you an idea of magazine image transfer using the matte gel. Because it's on tissue, you'd be able to use that in collage. So I'm going to try one with some text, just to find some nice text in my magazines here. So we're going to just do this simple one and just be able to use some of these numbers. You could run a strip of those lovely numbers through there. I will get my baby wipe ready and clean my plate, sorry. Just get rid of those where the creases were. I do like to start my image transfer with a clean plate. There we go, and that's ready to go. So my gel plate's clean. I've got my palette here, I've got my roller, and I've got my Amsterdam black, and I have my page ready that I'm going to use. I like to put a line. Lots of people choose to put dots, but I prefer a line of paint, and making sure that's a nice even spread across the plate. Long strokes, a little bit more pressure when you're starting out to just distribute that. It's not a matter of pushing hard, but just getting it nice and even. And then once we get to that stage, then we're just really lightly. I won't wipe any more off now. I want to make sure I've got enough, but I'm getting rid of those brayer lines with some very light strokes. Going down the middle there. Okay, always finding a balance between getting it nice and even and waiting too long and it drying. So trying to get rid of any air bubbles, and this is where clean hands does help, because that doesn't sort of grab on the magazine page. Really smoothing it down with the flat of your hand. You've got to be careful if you've got a ring not to be denting into that, not take too long on it. There's a little air bubble there, but that's very, very common when it comes to magazine image transfer. So we only just got those numbers on, thankfully. I don't care about the Vogue, I wouldn't be using that anyway. Grab the hairdryer and just dry that. Okay, so I'm going to print this onto some craft paper. So I'm going to use my matte gel again, lay that down. So I want it clear. I don't want a paint colour in now. I want to be able to see those numbers onto this craft paper. And that comes from this pad, in case you're interested, Artec craft pad. It's only 80 gram GSM. It's not too expensive, but that's just showing you where I got that from. So applying our matte gel. And using a clean roller to distribute that across the page. And lay the substrate down carefully, catching it on that left edge. For me, if you're left-handed, you might want to do it from the right edge. And again, I dry that to make sure that that matte gel adheres the print to the substrate. Okay, let's pull that one up. There we go, we've got all those numbers, which is great, and the print is coming up beautifully, not leaving anything on the plate. Okay, so that is a great use of magazine typography. Just using the numbers and the letters, the words. You know, you could tear some of this up easily in your collage. And then the first one we did was this one where it's an image. The detail in his hair is great. Obviously, there's a little bit where his eye didn't catch as well, but everything else has come up really nicely. So that gives you a very quick overview of magazine image transfer.